Hi guys, my name is Sophie Farrow, and I will be doing my issue 3 topic on the overall impacts of plant-based meat on the U.S. cattle industry. This is going to be more of like an economic glance, but I will also be going over a couple environmental factors as well. So to start off, I think it's really important to sort of go over the topic of what is plant-based meat. So essentially, meat alternatives are created by rearranging amino acid profiles of plant products to produce a meat-like texture and various seasonings for taste. So we know that proteins are composed of amino acid subunits that ultimately form polypeptide chains. So we can add different cooking enzymes and additives that will essentially catalyze different reactions. And then we can toughen up or reduce the texture of certain plant products to sort of like mimic the taste or texture of meat products. So, common plant-based meats are made from legumes or soy. A classic one is going to be the soybean, which makes tofu. Wheat gluten or seitan, that's a very common meat alternative product on the market right now. And then just vegetable proteins. And products are ultimately very diverse and can accommodate most dietary restrictions. So this includes, if you're gluten-free, vegan, etc. And the plant-based meat industry is dominated by about 8 companies. The top three include Amy's Kitchen, which is going to be seen in almost any supermarket. You probably can see it at Walmart, Target, definitely at Whole Foods. And then Impossible Foods, which is super famous for their new Impossible Burger that's being sold at Starbucks. And then I also believe at Burger King right now as well. And then Beyond Meat, which is sold at, I think, McDonald's now too. So definitely becoming more and more of an industry. So the consumer market for plant-based meat, I've reduced it down to the acronym of PBM. So right now, between 2 and 6% of Americans today self-identify as vegetarians or vegans, and only about 1% of the self-proclaimed vegetarians have reported never consuming meat. So we still have sort of a consumer market for meat, even in the vegetarian field. Less than 0.4% of adults reported consuming zero animal meat over 2 consecutive days, meaning that, like I said, people who are still reporting to have reduced meat intake are still typically eating meat every day, every other day. And while statistics are pretty modest, 7.5% of millennials and Gen Z consider themselves to be vegetarians or vegans. I know we talked about in the last lecture about how there's definitely generational shifts and trends towards reducing meat intake. And I think this statistic really reflects that. So most common concerns for meat include concern for animal welfare and the environment. Again, this is going to be sort of a generational concern that's going to be seen in more of these millennial and Gen Z populations. And however, plant-based meat is still 65% more costly than regular animal meat products, which is making it less affordable for those younger generation groups. And then just on the left, I have a couple pictures. There's like no shortage of vegan cookbooks on the internet or in literally any Barnes and Noble store. So KFC is actually selling the Beyond Fried Chicken right now. So a lot of fast food restaurants that typically target towards meat eaters are now also targeting vegetarians. And then at the bottom, we see a protest that is sort of talking about the animal and environmental implications of eating meat. So how plant-based meat affects the U.S. beef industry. This is actually a chart that I found on a overall consensus website that sort of talks about dietary change trends over the last couple of years. Looks like between 1994 and 2016. And as you can see, a lot of people are adopting a vegetarian diet now, probably more so in 2021 when things like TikTok and Snapchat have become more of a thing and we can share vegetarian vegan recipes online more easily. So overall, increasing public demand for vegetarian and vegan meat options and generational dietary trends, as I explained recently, exemplified in millennial and Gen Z populations, propose possible price decline and diversification of plant-based meat products. And then prices for plant-based meat products fell over 20% in 2021 and are projected to fall again another 10% by 2023, making them even that much more affordable. And price reduction and diversification of PBM products alongside dietary trends in favor of vegetarianism and as well as veganism propose potential welfare losses for beef producers as more and more people see social media posts and then as more and more fast food restaurants target vegetarians and vegans and the product becomes more affordable, we might see more and more losses for beef producers and then anybody who's in the beef industry as well. So effects of price decline in plant-based meat products in the US beef industry. A 10% price decline for plant-based meat products would essentially reduce ground beef production by 1.2%. This is all for 2023. Slaughter by 0.15%, and then that would equal a total loss of 300 million per year for industry members. Total effects would be modest but still apparent, and increased diversification of PBM products, which is definitely foreseeable in the near future, would also increase beef reduction. And then this is sort of alternatively not talking about economical differences, but environmental differences. The effects of price decline in plant-based meat products on the environment would pose massive differences, a lot more than on implications on the actual US beef industry. So 10% decrease in plant-based meat products would overall reduce US agricultural land use by 31,000 hectares by 2023. And then it would reduce reforestable pasture land use by 39,000 hectares, and this is the big one, reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 0.27 megatons of CO2 equivalent per year. And then these are sort of some pictures up top here. On the left are some reforested pasture land that was actually created due to losses in beef cattle production. So in conclusion, the effect of plant-based meat availability on the US beef industry ultimately depends on how willing consumers are to pay more money, change their current diets, and how concerned consumers are for animal welfare and the environment. As I previously said, more and more members of the millennial and Gen Z populations are trying to make a switch to veganism or vegetarianism, but because of the high cost, it's not always available to them. So with that reduced cost, even 10% by 2023, we could see massive implications for the environment, but not so much for the US beef industry. And trends are predicting future price drops in plant-based meat products, as I just discussed. And then currently, PBM products do not pose much issue in regards to negatively affecting the US beef industry, but they do pose massive implications, and those are positive implications for the environment. And the increased affordability of plant-based meat products at current consumer demand would, however, account for drastically positive environmental implications that I just talked about. So there's a lot of varying perspectives on the matter. As I said before, it's a super controversial topic. Most people who are members of the beef industry obviously oppose the diversification and then the price decline of plant-based meat alternatives. But younger generations are showing massive shifts toward diets that contain less animal products due to more widespread concerns for animals and the environmental implications of meat. Mid to older generations are also making low meat dietary changes, but these are more for health related concerns at a far less scale. And farmers and beef producers are concerned that if more Americans begin consuming PBM products, the price and production of beef will reduce. My opinion is currently plant-based meat products pose very little, if any, implications for the US beef industry, but do pose massive restoration to the environment, and thus continued pursuit of affordable PBM products should be strived for. And thanks for watching.